Mr. Orchard, hello, and welcome to RevuePolitique. And particularly, I want to have your assessment of the new government, the minority government of Mr. Martin, which has now been in office for a few months. What do you think of this government, this minority government? Mr. Martin said he's against Stephen Harper's program about integrating our country with the United States, and now he's working really in the same direction, the same direction as Mr. Harper. In fact, what he's doing is implementing integration with the United States in the military field, in the economic field, with further negotiations in John Manley. And now, what we're doing is placing our forces, the Army, the Navy, and the U.S. Command. So that's Mr. Martin's program. It's exactly what Mr. Harper was actually suggesting, what he was advocating during the election. And it's very dangerous for our independence as a country. So Canada has to take an independent position. But your concern about NAFTA is not recent. In 1997, when you came on the public scene with arguments against NAFTA, you were already very concerned about NAFTA. Well, I'm concerned about the independence of my country. They promised free trade with the United States. Well, we have the problem of softwood lumber. We have the problem of the border, or beef exports being closed at the border. We've got problems over wheat. We've got problems over softwood lumber. And there are all sorts of other issues. At the same time, we now have major U.S. companies who are buying up all our Canadian corporations. They bought up Macmillan Bloedel. At the moment, they're buying up Molson breweries. We've got less than 10 major Canadian corporations on the Toronto Stock Exchange now. This means it's the end of our independence if we don't have major corporations in Canada. We have to have industries. We have to have a shipbuilding industry. We have to have an automobile industry. Everything is possible. But not if we follow Mr. Martin's path and integration with the United States. Look, can Mr. Harper set up an important bloc against Mr. Martin? Are you satisfied with Mr. Harper's work in the House? Well, no, not really. Well, look, Mr. Harper can establish a bloc there. He now says the Conservative Party is neutral with respect to integration of Canada in the Star Wars, for example, joining the Star Wars project. Now, the Bloc is against that integration, and so is the NDP. So it's possible, therefore, for the new Conservative Party, rather, to stop this implementation by Mr. Martin. And I do hope, in fact, that Mr. Harper will listen to the people of Quebec and the people of the rest of Canada also, who are against this new military integration with the United States. Because if Canada places its forces under the command of another power, under U.S. command, then it means it's the end of our independence as a country. Let's go back, the election campaign. So you followed what happened. Mr. Harper was supposed to be Prime Minister of Canada one time, according to the polls, but he didn't win. What do you think of his performance during the campaign? Well, Mr. Harper took certain positions which do not really represent the majority of Canadians. He said we have to follow the Americans into Iraq, for example. Well, if you will, most of Canadians are against that. They're against the war in Iraq. It's a war which is completely unlawful, illegal. It's against international law for one country to launch an attack against another country, which is what the Americans did against Iraq. But Mr. Harper and Mr. Day wrote a letter in the Wall Street Journal stating that Canada should send troops to Iraq. Now, that's just one thing. Another point now. Mr. Harper said he was in favor of economic integration, Canada with the United States. Now, once again, I must point out that the majority of Canadians are afraid of that position because the United States is 10 times stronger than our country. And also on other issues. But I think the key issue, the key question, concerns our relationship with the United States. And I think that most of Canadians are in favor of the independence of our country. Mr. Martin said, we are Canadian. We're going to stand up for a strong and independent Canada. But now look what he's doing. He's just following Mr. Harper's program. Well, from your experience running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, what's the main memory of this? Is it a bitter memory, or is it just so that you can come back again a little later? Well, look, I'm not dead. It didn't kill me. And I spent the summer in my farm in Western Canada, and I learned a lot from that experience. And I think to some degree, I was right. The majority of Canadians didn't vote for the new Conservative Party, and I myself was against the merger. I said, now it's time for the Progressive Conservative Party. It's not the time for an extreme right-wing party. And I think the results of this election prove, perhaps, that I did have a point which people accepted. Because Canadians in Quebec and also in Ontario and also in the Maritimes, they are not ready for Mr. Harper and for the extreme right. In the Progressive Conservative Party, we had a reputation for being moderates on significant issues, social issues, for example. And maybe the position which I took was, in fact, the position of Canadians in general who wanted a moderate alternative to the Liberals. Are you still angry with Peter MacKay? Are you still angry with Peter MacKay? Peter MacKay, who concluded an agreement with you under which he would merger with another political party. Have you had an opportunity to speak with him since that time? No, you haven't spoken to him. What do you think of it all? Well, it's treason. It's a betrayal. Mr. MacKay signed an agreement with me. He shook my hand. He said, David, we together are going to build the Progressive Conservative Party. And the first point in our agreement was no merger with the Alliance. Then immediately afterwards, he started negotiations on the merger. He put an end to the party, this historic party. This party, in fact, which founded our country, namely the Progressive Conservative Party. Could you might possibly leave and set up a new political party? Well, that's difficult. It's very difficult in Canada. If we had a system of proportional representation, well, then perhaps it'd be easier to set up a new party. But it's not easy. Mr. Levesque did it, of course. He left the Liberals, and he set up a new party. But that was based on the issue of sovereignty. So I think what we need is a party which perhaps would advocate the sovereignty of all of Canada. But actually creating a new party, of course, this is one of the options, but I do think it's difficult. I know you're in favor of election reform. You want to reform. A minority government really is that to some degree. I think it's very important for Canada to have this reform, because we now have the same kind of system as in Great Britain, as Britain had 100 years ago. So what we need now is reform, and I'm in favor of a system of proportional representation. And I'm very encouraged by what's taking place in British Columbia, in Quebec, and also in Prince Edward Island, where there are commissions currently studying this issue. And I think, in fact, there will be a referendum in British Columbia on this very point. So you have to take this momentum, and we have to apply this to the nation as a whole. In conclusion now, what should we be up to over the next few weeks? Well, I'm going to speak in Toronto. I have a meeting in 2 days in Montreal before 1,000 students with David Suzuki. And after those meetings in Toronto, there'll be meeting in Quebec City also. And then I'll take another immersion course in French in Quebec City, of course. And on the farm, I have to go back to the farm and then finish with the harvest, because I am a biological farmer with 2,500 acres in Saskatchewan, and we haven't finished with the harvest yet, because this fall was very difficult. We had snow, we had frost. Well, congratulations on the quality of your French. It's very good, even though you decided to continue your course in French. But what you're doing already is already excellent. Thank you very much, David Orchard, for being with us on RevuePolitique. Well, you're very kind, but I have to continue to improve my French. Thank you very much.